Miller Fabrication Solutions is a contract manufacturer of mostly steel parts, but any kind of metal weldments and fabrications within the several industries that are original equipment manufacturers, such as construction equipment, mining equipment, rail related industries. So anything that's large that needs welded, machined, painted, assembled. We do those kinds of products for original equipment manufacturers most of the time is what that looks like. So I've been working. This is my going into my 23rd year. So I've been here 22 years and started off in IT and as a account rep. So we were a smaller business then. We did about 29 million in sales at the time, and we've grown that over the years to be north of $100 million company. I've went from various roles within the company to now I'm the president of the business. So I'm a third generation owner of the business, and we want to hopefully continue to grow the business well into the future and continue to provide for improve the lives of our employees, our customers, our suppliers, and our community is the reason we exist here. So our target customers are generally original equipment manufacturers. They're typically world leaders in their field. We've kind of ended up arriving at that both. I think that's both from a size standpoint. We're not typically taking on orders that are small. We're typically taking on multi-million-dollar orders at this point. And you need to be a certain size to be able to outsource that level of capacity. But also, we're looking for customers who value products being delivered to their assembly line. So the more we can do for them, the better. Meaning, we deliver a lot of parts painted to assembly lines rather than just supplying maybe pieces and parts that they would then process internally. Not to say that we don't do that, we do, but the bulk of what we're doing are essentially ready-to-use parts for large original equipment companies, and those fields are generally construction equipment, rail-related industries, so not only maintenance of way, but people making locomotives or making freighter coach cars for the passenger side, both passenger and freight rail. We deal with a lot of customers in the forestry production, agriculture, power generation is becoming a big draw in the industry. So we see, there's a lot of different industries we can work with, but we tend to work with relatively household names, even though they're industrial companies. Most people would be familiar with them if we were to list them off. So just kind of those kind of organizations are typically who we would target. Yeah, so we've had some being in the construction equipment. We were concentrated pretty heavily in construction equipment. Let's go back. Our relationship with ITR, I believe, is about at least 10 years long. At least my familiarity with the organization goes beyond that. So we'll go back about that time. We were much more heavily concentrated in construction equipment at the time. It's a very volatile industry. Now we work with a number of different companies in that space and all different types of equipment that's used in that space, but we're very much held to the will of the market, right? So a lot of ups and downs. We didn't have really good timing. We didn't seem to ever time it right. So every time we build a facility, we joke that if we're building a building or doing a big investment, probably want to get out of the market because the bad things are coming, right? Because we always tended to buy the equipment or buy the building, and then all of a sudden our sales would erode. I understand that better now, having worked with ITR, is that we were purchasing on the upswing, not realizing that the downswing was coming. And so we bought it at probably the worst possible point on the economic cycle, which was at the very peak of the cycle. Didn't feel like it was the peak of the cycle, but it was. So I was introduced to them through Vistage. I think it was Alan was the speaker one time at a Vistage event, and I was really impressed with his approach, with the with the methods and the way ITR goes about predicting the market, and the accuracy was kind of striking. So we kind of started paying attention to it, and started realizing that, wow, we can see these things. And then we ran the analysis on our data going back several years, and realized that had we known what we know now, and even at that time it was a very basic understanding. And we're not economists by any stretch of the imagination, but if we even had a basic understanding back then, we might have questioned some things that we did not. So I think that's helped us align our CapEx spends and prepare for each business cycle that's coming. So what stage in the cycle are we? I think that's helped the organization quite a bit. So I think there was a pain point there that we felt, we might be at whim to the economy here, and it's not predictable, only to realize that, yeah, there's things that no one can predict, right? There are black swan events, those exist, but there's a lot that can't be predicted, or at least, it'll move in harmony with move in the same direction. So, that's how, we probably didn't even understand the problems that we could solve until we started seeing some of the methodology. And then we started realizing there's a lot of things we can do here to help better the company. It also gave us insight into what industries can we target that have different phases outside of the industries we're in now, to try to give ourselves a better distribution across business cycles, so we're not subject to one cycle. And we've done a lot of work there and have started diversifying the business outside of those industries through growth, not through shrink, but actually growing the business. We hope to double in size from our 2022 year to probably 2026. We should double the business. That'll help, but we want to grow that if we can in other industries that might offset our concentration in construction equipment. So that's really how it started. And as we got further along in the process, the more we realized we might want to go even deeper, and that led to our eventual EVP, EVP subscription with ITR. But I think it was about 10 years ago when we were, give or take a couple of years. That's when we were introduced to Alan. I would say maybe at most it was 15, but I think when he gave that talk, it was kind of an enlightening. I'd never heard anyone kind of speak like that and put it in the terms that he did with the ABCD business cycle. And that definitely started when we came home from that talk and ran our data through that same analysis. That's when we went, there's something to this, and we need to start paying attention. Yeah, I think if we hadn't known about ITR and hadn't been introduced, probably would have made things a little bit more difficult. We probably would have timed some things, even continued down that path of maybe not timing things as well as we do now. And we're not perfect by any stretch. I mean, we think we have it timed right, and then, like I said, things might not go exactly as we anticipate, but we're much better aligned to the business cycle now. So I think if we hadn't, there would have been times where we would have had much more strain on our cash flow at certain points than we did, because we knew, like, hey, let's wait a year. And it worked, so we saved ourselves, in our CapEx, when we're buying capital equipment, it's a very capital intensive industry in the business we're in. So I'm not talking about buying a couple $1,000 piece of equipment or even 50,000. We're talking about millions of dollars. And so we would have had millions of dollars coming out of cash when we didn't need it to come out of cash. And so that's cash is oxygen to a business. So there probably would have been some times when it would have been a little more stressful on the business than we would have wanted, and could have led to some difficult decisions. But thankfully, we didn't have to go there. But I don't know. I mean, obviously you don't know, but I sense that it would have been a much more difficult road to navigate had we not had the information. So I'm glad that we did have the information, were introduced, because it at least gave us the ability to be driving from the windshield rather than the rearview mirror. So I heard Alan, and my father did as well. He was the president at the time. I was vice president of sales at the time. And then we started paying more attention, right? So our first step was to subscribe to the trends report. And as we started reading that cover to cover every month, pretty much religiously, we started wondering, like, boy, it would be really cool if we could get this information on our data, and have maybe some people who do know economics more than we do. I have a basic understanding of it, underlying basic, but maybe we could get a little more of a third party review of our own numbers. And that's when, we realized, hey, they do that. So that's when we moved on to the EVP side. And that's how the process worked with us. And we didn't really look at other sources because we saw the reason we didn't really shop it out is because we saw the data. When we went back and ran it against our data, it matched up and aligned with what he was saying, with what ITR was saying. We continued to watch that then for a year or two, probably. And, if it's right and it's accurate or at least reasonably so. And not only, I've been talking mostly from the sales side here, but we also use the EVP process to track the purchasing side. So we use steel more than any other metal. Well, where's the steel market going? Should I be concerned? Are my prices about to increase dramatically, or are they going to decrease dramatically? What are we looking at? And like, where's steel in the business cycle, and how can we try to tie that back as close as we can as another data point? It's not the only data point we look at when it comes to materials, but how do we use that as yet another data point to try to predict, okay, should I be hedging? Should I not be hedging? What should we do here? And there were definitely some moves that we made as a result of data that paid off, and really helped the company. So there's more than one way to use the data. Like, we're not just using it purely on the sales side, but more as a holistic business, identifier and kind of predictor. Yeah, I mean, I thought the implementation of the EVP process was pretty straightforward and easy. And, we had the data. So running the data back as many years as we did, and I forget exactly how many years it was at the time, but several years. Probably the most difficult part of it was having a conversation of, hey, this is who we are. These are the businesses we work with. This is the kind of products we make, so that we could pick out, like, what are give the economist a kind of an idea of what indicators they might think about using. And then there was a call back saying, okay, here's the indicators we think we like, and here's why. And off we went. I mean, it was pretty straightforward. The team at ITR made that pretty straightforward, pretty easy. There's a page in the report. So I look at all the indicators, but there's a page that sums them all up and shows maybe 3 years forward look, 2 to 3, 4 years. And so you can kind of see what industries are moving in what ways, at least what we see. So I look at that pretty carefully, but I also look at the forecast. So if we do nothing, I kind of view it as, if we just stay on the same track, here's what ITR is telling us we're going to do, quarter by quarter, year by year. It's shockingly accurate. It's amazing how accurate it is. So my challenge to the team is always, we should be constantly making them revise the forecast high. Because if we just sit here and do nothing, and this is what we can expect, shouldn't we expect better than that? Shouldn't we try to beat that? Isn't that our objective? And so we use it as a big input to our strategic planning process is, okay, here's what ITR saying the industry is doing, for two ways. Number one is a little bit of competitive nature there, right? To try to beat it, right? Because that's what, arming ourselves with that information. Okay, what are we going to do based on what we see here that's going to give us the ability to beat the forecast? And secondly, well, we use it as a little bit of a calibration tool too. So if they say, hey, you're at 100 million this year, you're going to be at 90 million next year. Well, we think we're going to be at 130. why is there a huge gap there? What do we know that ITR doesn't know? Or are we just being a little bit or a lot bit, or maybe we're being far too optimistic. And so we use it as a tool to kind of reality check ourselves and say, okay, what are we not considering? And the thing I like most about the product is that I can call, Lauren's our economist. I can call Lauren anytime I want, and she answers the phone. She picks it up. I'll describe the problem, and she gives me her opinion. Um, we were about to invest in a facility, big investment. The facility that we purchased, plus the equipment that we needed to put into it, was one of the largest investments we've ever made. There was a call made, actually several calls made, saying, okay, what do you see as the risks? Here's why I'm thinking, but what do you see from a demand standpoint? What do you see from from a labor standpoint? And just to have that interaction is pretty important. So that we use that a lot. But as far as the report goes, yeah, I look at the forecast to try to beat it and also to calibrate. But I look at the metrics as far as what industries are going and what industries we should target. That's still a conversation within the company is, okay, what industry should we go after? So that's how I use it. But I mean, I read it pretty much cover to cover every time it comes in. So. And there have been times where I said, hey, I think that there's some information that we have, and we might have information that just they don't, you don't have because it's not in the data yet. It's coming. And so there's times where we'll deviate, and sometimes that's right, sometimes it's not. But from what ITR does know and what we are providing and the color, and that's where that conversation with the economist is so important, is to keep Lauren in the background, keep her up to date, so that the advice we're getting is, cogent advice. It's timely. It's what we need to know. And it definitely does help inform our decisions on capital expenditure, timing more than anything. But just to understand like where things are headed, and it's a good straw man for our team to say, okay, how do we, why do we believe we're going to be lower or higher than what ITR thinks? And to kind of talk through that, it forces a conversation where before there wouldn't have been one. So that definitely is a change. Pre ITR, we would have never had the opportunity to even have that conversation. What I can tell you is the measurements that we see impacted by the ITR data. We see our diverse sales number increasing because we're trying to target industries that are growing and might need suppliers. So we try to align you don't need to talk to people if we go to an industry and say, hey, would love to work with you while they're in recession, that might not be what they want to hear. Or at least we need to change our communication. It might be, hey, we can help cut costs by consolidating suppliers, or we can do that. There might be some things we can do to tailor our messaging. But we try to align it with that kind of A cycle where they're starting to spin up and they know they're going to need suppliers. So that's helped that area, but cash has definitely helped. Like again, that positioning of, our CapEx spend is big. And so positioning that appropriately so that we can buy it at the bottom of the business cycle, which was when no one else is buying equipment generally. So we look kind of maybe silly to some people because we're not timed to what everybody else is doing, which generally we can negotiate better deals. But we have the faith then that we're going to come out of it and be able to use that equipment the whole way up the upslope of the business cycle. So that has helped the cash flow and productivity of the business for sure. So exactly quantifying that's tough for me to do, but qualitatively, I would say it's definitely helped cash. It's helped us on our marketing and sales side. Definitely helped us on some material hedges. And, I think one of the things I like about ITR is that people pick up the phone and talk to you. Like I don't have to wait and, I can schedule a call and I know that when that time comes, I'm going to be talking to someone and they're going to know exactly what to do. Lauren's great. I mean, my advice would be, start small if you want. If you're kind of not sure, use a trends report. And I mean, that's a pretty inexpensive, it's a pretty economical subscription. Then run it on your data and see if it teaches you anything, if you have any learnings. That's what kind of sold us is when our data lined up to a lot of the measurements that were in the trends report. And we said, holy cow, we actually have some forward visibility to this that we never knew we had. So I would say use your own data, look at the ITR data, subscribe to the trends and see what you see what you can learn.